So speaking of societal challenges, I'm pleased to introduce the next session, Should Organizations Link Responsible AI and Corporate Responsibility? I can't think of a more timely conversation, and something that I'm sure we're all thinking about of, you're reading all the headlines on AI and thinking, what can I do? How can we apply this to our work? How can we tap all these efficiencies that we're hearing about? So for this panel, I'm pleased to introduce and invite up to the stage Stephanie Bell from Partnership on AI, Balaji Ganapathy from TCS, Andrea Avtjoglou from Blackbaud, and Justina Nixon-Saintil from IBM. So please join me on stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a little sad that we were standing in the back corner and so didn't have any chairs to chat, but it looks like we would not have been the lucky winners as it was. Congrats to the folks who were. My name is Stephanie Bell. I am the Chief Programs and Insights Officer at the Partnership on AI, which is a multi-stakeholder nonprofit organization focused on bringing together industry, civil society, and academia to better understand the impacts of artificial intelligence on society and ensure that those impacts are positive. Whether it comes to ensuring that these technologies create equity rather than increase discrimination, or create shared prosperity as opposed to increasing inequality. We work across a large portfolio of programs and are very excited to be doing that work in partnership, actually with many of the companies who have representatives in this room. I'm joined here on stage to talk about the intersection of responsible AI and corporate social responsibility by three fantastic experts in the space, who I'm going to invite to introduce themselves, say a little bit about their organization and their work here, and talk a little bit about how each of your organizations defines responsible AI. And so with that, I'll actually start at the far left and go to Justina first.
Hi, everyone. Justina Nixon-Saintil. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at IBM. So I lead our corporate global social responsibility function. All of our social impact programs focus on sustainability and education, our volunteerism as well. But I also lead our ESG strategy programs and disclosure. So I'm also on the AI ethics board. So I have a sight into how we look at responsible AI. And we're also integrating a lot of our AI technology and our platforms into the work that we do around social impact. So how we look at responsible AI is really based on three guiding principles. And IBM had created the AI ethics board actually a few years ago. We meet monthly. We also have working groups that are part of it that meet on a regular basis as well. And all of the work that we do around AI across the company comes to the board. We make decisions based on how clients want to use our technology. We look at policy. And everything, again, is focused on these three guiding principles, which is the purpose of AI is to augment human intelligence, not replace human intelligence. The second guiding principle is that the creator owns the data and the insights. So even when we work with clients, when we work with partners, we make sure it's very clear that they own their data, they own the insights, we are just an enabler, we are supporting them. And then the third guiding principle is that the technology needs to be transparent and explainability. It has explainability, which means if you're doing something around AI, right, and we've seen a lot of these interfaces where there may be a human, or recently in the news, there was the use of somebody's voice, you have to be very clear that this is AI and this is not a human. So being transparent about how you're using the technology is extremely important to us as well. So we really focus on those three guiding principles. The other area that we have a very strong point of view on is that if you regulate the technology itself, you are stifling innovation. So we very much focus on how do we regulate or put guardrails around the use cases? How do you make sure you're protecting people? How you make sure you're protecting society, so you have guardrails around the use cases around AI, but you're not actually regulating the technology, because again, that could reduce the amount of innovation that companies, especially entrepreneurs, are having in this space. So that's just how we define responsible AI.
Thanks so much, Justina, and love that set of guiding principles to kick off the conversation. We'll be returning to a few of those themes over the course of the next half hour or so. Balaji, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, I'm Balaji Ganapathy. I'm the Chief Social Responsibility Officer at TCS. TCS is a a small $30 billion information technology company. We have about 600,000 employees globally. We operate in 55 markets. And in full disclosure, AI did help me prepare for the session. So I think you're going to hear this quite often going forward. But I want to start, instead of doom and gloom, with something very positive. And it's going back a few years. I was on this very same stage a few years ago talking about new technologies. And I want to repeat that human intelligence still drives artificial intelligence. So that's the positive takeaway. If you have one thing to take away, it is that human intelligence still drives artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is not a monolith. So when I talk about how TCS and how I, as a social impact leader, look at this space, I want to help you understand that it's not only the Gen AI, the ChatGPT 4.0, which is, we are getting swept up in that hype, but it's a whole slew of technologies that have been used for the last 10, 15, even more years, right? So from voice assistants that we are all familiar with, the Alexas and the Siris, the speech, the recommendation engines from Netflix or Amazon, all the way to natural language processing systems like chatbots and computer vision. You have robotics, and then you have the GANs, which is where the GPTs and other LLMs fall under, right? Deep learning, etc. So I'm saying this with the purpose that as practitioners in different parts of our organization, we also have a responsibility to understand some of these technologies beyond the buzzwords and spend time, because it's still in the early stages of being adopted within organizations. And when you look at it from the lens of the organization, I want to offer you 3 things to think about, which we are all very familiar with. One is values, the second is framework, and the third is behaviors. And we can influence this as leaders, as teams in the organization. Values, they are constant. That's not going to change. But how do you apply the values in creating responsible solutions using AI technologies? Justina spoke about transparency and the importance to be fair, to be equitable, to ensure that the basic principles of how you're using it is going to benefit all people, not some. So that, I would say, is how you uphold the values. You have to bring it to life by having frameworks in place that can help you set guardrails, but also when guardrails don't exist, go back and look at, okay, hey, this use case is there, but I don't have a policy for how to go about it. Let me go back and look at it. But the underlying way of looking at the guardrails or the framework is to look at privacy and security as 2 outputs that are constant, right? Is it secure? And is it protecting the privacy rights of all of the stakeholders who are involved in that? And from a behaviors perspective, the key thing to look at is it humane, right? How is it going to be utilized? Who is benefiting from it? And so I'll leave you with that, right? Values, framework, and behaviors. And I asked ChatGPT another way of telling this, and it told me that values is basically trustworthiness. Framework is basically security, and behaviors is basically humane. So that is your AI augmented message to start the session.
Wisdom from the AI itself already.
On itself.
Yeah, on itself too, right? It's going a little meta. Even though we don't have anybody from Meta on stage right now, they also have lots of thoughts about this. The thing that I really appreciated about that answer is how centered on people it is. Because at every stage of that values, that framework, those behaviors, you have people either deciding what each of those are or making them happen in practice. We aren't yet at a point where the tech is running away on its own, even if we do get a little advice from it sometimes. Andrea, over to you.
It's difficult to follow such thorough answers, but I'll see what I can add. I'm Andrea Avtjoglou. I'm the Director of Data Product Management at Blackbaud. We are a software provider for corporate impact and social impact solutions. So everything from fundraising and donor management systems to CSR Connect and the Your Cause suite of products, as well as Everfi. So I am in the business of providing AI solutions for our customers. So I have been working in this space quite a bit and thinking about the impact on social impact, right? And how Blackbaud's own approach to it in creating a framework that creates governance, policies, empowerment, and process, right? So the way we approach it in Blackbaud is set up an AI council, much like Justina just talked about, set up policies that allow for the very ethical challenges. So how do you establish accountability, transparency, responsibility, and all of those truly human things around what AI is, what AI can produce, right? As both of my colleagues have just said on stage, it is still a very much human technology, right? It is still built by humans to augment humanity. And the third thing is empowerment. And I would say at Blackbaud, we're doing a really good job of teaching our employees not only to sell products that have AI within them for our customers' usage, but teaching our employees how to use AI themselves to make their own processes, to make their own workflows, to make their own small teams even more efficient and more effective. So that empowerment piece from within allows all of our employees to start from a place of knowledge and understanding and comprehension of the limits and the boundaries of what AI can do for us. And then the third piece around process is make things that are repeatable, right? So don't just always be testing something new and testing something new. Find the use cases that actually provide the benefits and solve the pains of our customers and our employees, and make almost a factory approach to that. So how can we create something once that's almost like a cookie cutter, a template, and then it gets slightly adjusted or tweaked throughout the company and throughout all of our software products to be adjusted for different use cases, like Justina was mentioning.
Fabulous. I love the focus on learning over time as opposed to just going out with a wild set of experiments and trying to start anew every single moment. Also really appreciated the focus on social impact there. And that is something where I'd like to pick up with the next question, actually. I think all of us have seen a lot of headlines about AI, some of which are talking about, a lot of pretty scary doomsday scenarios, a lot of fears, a lot of calls for regulation. We'll get there, but I'd actually like to start with some of the positive side. Justina, can you share some of the things that you're most excited about at IBM in terms of positive social impact coming out of these technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we have a huge focus on education and sustainability. And in the sustainability space, we have a program called the IBM Sustainability Accelerator. And IBM, of course, has focused on AI for many, many years. So when we launched the accelerator, it was around using our weather data, our AI capabilities to actually help the most vulnerable communities that are being challenged by weather changes, environmental threats, climate change. So we leverage our AI, we leverage our weather data, we partner with nonprofit organizations, we help them iterate on their solutions, and then we help them launch those solutions in those vulnerable communities. Now, with generative AI, we've taken this a step further. So we have different cohorts that are focused on sustainable agriculture, resilient cities, water management, and clean energy. So now we're using generative AI to really help our nonprofits understand how do you leverage their data in a large language model, and then how do you use the insights and the output from those models to really create new insights, new models, new products that they could leverage and launch in the community. So right now we're working with Texas A&M AgriLife on how we use large language models to actually help farmers understand when to water, when to plant, how to increase yield in their communities. We started that program in Texas. Now we're expanding it to other very arid areas across the United States. We're also working with UNDP and other partners in Kenya on how we use geospatial data, AI as well, to deliver clean energy solutions to very rural areas in Africa. So we are continuing to leverage our own AI expertise, and generative AI really just takes it a step further, right, because of LLMs. But again, this has been something that's been a focus of ours. In the education space, the same thing. We have a global program called IBM Skills Build, and we have a platform that anyone can access. It's open to anyone, but we partner very specifically with nonprofit organizations that can bring the content and the training to specific groups that we want to make sure they have skills who have been left out of the workplace historically. So with that, we're using generative AI to provide the right learning pathways for our users, right? Making sure that they have a personalized learning path based on their interests, the types of badges that they want. How do we create those learning pathways using AI? And that's another way that we're using Gen AI. So again, it goes back to who are the communities we want to impact, what are their needs, what are the needs of our nonprofits as well, because this requires upskilling them and making sure that they can leverage the chatbots and making sure that they can also understand the output from the data, right? So there's judgment there are digital skills that are needed, but we work very closely with the nonprofits to upskill them. But I also think this is creating a really great personalized learning pathway for our users, and then also helping our nonprofits understand better how to use the data because they're closest to the communities and they understand what the communities need, but we can provide our expertise and our platforms to help them have a greater impact in those communities.
Fantastic. And the global focus there, I think, is one of the biggest things that we can get from artificial intelligence technologies is the ability to scale so many of these solutions. And also, in some instances, leapfrog existing infrastructure and digital capabilities that exist around the world. Love that highlighting of possibility. Want to check in with Balaji and Andrea if there's any examples you'd like to share on the social impact front from your organizations before we pick up on the thread of workforce that was just raised.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of similarities given, of course, IBM has been a leader from the Watson days and beyond in this space, so this is a tough act to follow. But I would say the opportunities were very clearly early on in the energy and the sustainability space because of the preparedness that organizations had to be able to come up with solutions that are innovative, right? So whether it is understanding weather patterns, energy consumption, supply chains, where your sources of energy is coming from, and then creating solutions so that you can reduce your energy usage, make it more clean. All of those are easy examples of where in the business side we saw a lot of adoption. And along with adopting things on a business side, I believe that organizations, what they do on the business side, the talent side, and the community side has to be the same, right? So bringing the best of what those solutions are and offering it to both our employees and to the communities where we live and work, that's the model that we follow. So what does that translate to? For example, in the conservation space, one of the early examples of where we adopted AI was to look at a wildlife sanctuary in India where the single-horned rhino is there, and it's almost on its way to extinction. So we thought, okay, how do you use technologies like drones and sensors and image recognition to help inform the administrators in terms of whether poachers were there and how to protect the rhino. And we were able to do that very successfully over a 2 to 3 year period. The incidents went down and you were able to conserve and grow the population. So it is a very tangible example of how you can do it from that perspective. But where I see the greatest potential was in the genomic space where we were doing work with drug manufacturers and pharmaceutical companies around the world. These are our customers, and they are doing a lot of cutting-edge work in this space. But how do you take that into a non-competitive space and work on solutions or use cases around that? And for the last about 5 to 6 years, we are working on transactional cancer research on 2 populations that are under-researched in the world, both Asian, right? Childhood leukemia. The genetic makeup of cancer and cancer drugs are predominantly focused on Caucasians. And so how do you use the power of data and genomic to come up with transactional research for childhood leukemia and then for gallbladder? And the beauty is that when you put all these data sets that are available through research together, what that team came up with, which is completely social impact focused, this is not something that we are selling to customers, is multi-drug usage to bring down the time it takes for remission. I mean, when you look at families that are under-resourced, do not have drugs in the market available, and they are able to use a multi-drug routine to bring down the time it takes to remission. I mean, you're using the best of what you're doing on your business front to create impact in this space. The last thing I would say is Gen AI, I don't think we are quite there yet as compared to what IBM and Justina is doing. What I'm doing in my own team is, from across our team, we chose a few people to get exposure to systems, protected systems like Azure AI and Vertex AI, and ask them to come up with what are the kind of problems that you are seeing with your community organizations. Bring that up and come up with ideas and present ideas in terms of where this could go. And 2 or 3 very quick ones. One that came up interestingly was language translation. Yeah, there are great language translation systems in the world, but they are not contextual. Culturally, or in terms of marginalization, that's not coded into any systems. So our team came up with a brilliant idea in terms of how that can be a use case that's usable for the students that we serve, the teachers that we serve. Another quick one was around personalization of lessons for students who are at different learning levels. Okay? Especially when you go to schools where 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, all of them are sitting on the floor together, trying to get to basic foundational literacy and numeracy. The teacher is pretty much at capacity. So how can you offer lesson plans that are customized to different learning levels and age groups in the context of a rural community where it is under-resourced? So these are use cases we are working on right now. So if anybody has insights and learnings on this, come find me. I'd love to use your learnings to advance that.
Fantastic. Andrea, what would
I
you like?
have 2 examples where we've been helping our customers with AI, and I have 1 example from an internal use case for AI. So the 2 examples for at a very micro, boots on the ground type of helping nonprofits and helping the social impact cause. One is it's a donor acknowledgement letter writer. So our participating nonprofits can use our software to basically automatically generate personalized letters of acknowledgement and thank you to their donors. Now, you wouldn't think that was a big deal, but in nonprofits with small staffs and limited time and resources, this is a great accelerator for them. And all they have to do is kind of have the basic metrics available, and then the rest of it is generated by Gen AI. And they can set tone, they can set language, all of these things Gen AI does so well, and so intuitively, that is a great accelerator for the nonprofit space. The other one is at an individual fundraiser's place. There's a Just Giving product in the UK, which is one of the most popular kind of crowd fundraising type of softwares they have out there. They use it for a lot of individuals that are raising money for marathons and things like that, and pledges and things like that. And so they found that one of the greatest barriers to individuals using that platform to raise money for nonprofits and for local causes was they were afraid to or didn't know how to tell their story. So we built a tool called a story enhancer that says, enter a few of your details, tell us what kind of tone you want to say it in, and we'll write the story for you. And you can, of course, have your final edit rights, and it will, of course, say at the bottom that this was written by me with the help of AI, right? But at the same time, it is all there, and it makes all of those kind of last hurdles that much more surmountable for nonprofits and for individual fundraisers. The third example is internally to Blackbaud. So we kind of eat our own dog food, right? We use our own corporate CSR platform to raise money and to do the volunteering and engagement for our employees. And one of the things we're working on, I was very, very proud to say that the Blackbaud CSR department was one of the testers for the generative AI components for the reporting tool that I'm building for all of our CSR software. And that generative AI component, it's an accelerator in that it helps understand and synthesize large amounts of data very quickly for our CSR department. Like many of you out there, our CSR department is a small, very small but mighty team. And it's kind of like the chorus I've heard throughout this conference is we have amazing individuals, but they're not enough of us, right? And we have so much data and so many stories to tell. How can we get that help to tell those stories better, faster, with more details and more data behind it? And so this is what these new tools that our own internal CSR department, our own impact storytelling has been benefiting from.
Love that as well. Eat our own dog food feels like a good principle, right? Don't unleash anything out on the world that you aren't willing to go ahead and give a whirl yourself. So we focused here so far on some of the positives of AI, but I also teed up that, of course, there are a lot of challenges, right? Artificial intelligence creates so many concerns from so many people, many of them extremely justified. And one of the ones that is really top of mind these days for a lot of people is impacts on workforce. Which is something that I'm seeing some head nods around the room, so this sounds like it might be a concern that resonates with some of you too. Balaji, let's pick up with you to hear about how you're thinking about artificial intelligence and its intersection with your 600,000 employees. How are you implementing that in a way that is worker-focused, worker-centric, and using it to improve rather than reduce their experience at your company?
That's an important question that I think a lot of us will have to grapple with and speak up on quite a bit. So I think here is where I have a difference of opinion that here it's not about use cases, here it's about focusing on stakeholder value. What is your organization doing and how are you creating value, right? So if that is the ultimate goal that you're looking at, you would start with saying that upskilling and reskilling is not enough. You have to do up-leveling. And what I mean by that is you first have to ensure through your principles, through your policies that AI first assists, I think I need AI, assists, then it augments, okay? It doesn't replace. How can you do that? When I say value, stakeholder value can be better derived through innovation than from optimization, right? So this is the very same principles that CECP talks about, long-termism, but you have to look at it from the context of the opportunity that is currently on the table. And what gives me hope is we surveyed about 1,300 CXOs in 24 countries around the world. 54% of them said that AI has more potential than the internet. 56% said more potential than the smartphone. And guess what is the percentage that said that it is actually creating business transformation today? Can anybody guess the percentage? 82? 2%. Why? Because while the hype cycle is going on, enterprise adoption of AI, especially Gen AI, is a very early stage. So don't worry about, okay, doom and gloom of what is going to happen. But it is real. So first start in-house. So we trained over 400,000 of our employees already on the second level of competencies at Gen AI. I can proudly say that all 300 members of my social impact team are Gen AI proficient, right? They understand what it is. They understand, Stephanie's sitting here and nodding her head. She understands prompt engineering and what it means. We have to live it first, along with the rest of the organization. But again, final takeaway, yeah, up-leveling, I don't know if that's the word we all commonly are going to use, but I would, say somebody, maybe the storytelling bot can help come up with a better word, but that is what you should aim for. If you aim for that and make sure that people who are doing the jobs today are moving into levels where they are being supported by and augmented by AI, you can reduce the chance of layoffs while at the same time increase the chance of creating value through innovation and not just through optimization.
And I would add to that up-leveling, I would call it empowerment, right? So you empower your employees to understand these advanced skills that you're putting in front of them and how they can use those skills to level up their performance, right? So it creates such an opportunity for efficiencies, to reduce workflow times, to reduce processes, to find the to find and fix the breakpoints in certain processes, that you can empower everybody to get that training in AI, get that training in the tools that are available. At Blackbaud, we have several cohort programs that are constantly cycling through essentially the entire employee population, where they learn to use different tools, and they come with their specific pain points in mind. And they use Gen AI and Microsoft Copilot and other types of Gen AI tools that may or may not be part of different software suites, and see how those tools can help make their work better and make them more efficient. So, and if they are masters of those tools, of those efficiency tools, then they also protect themselves against the workforce reductions that Balaji was talking about.
Yeah, quickly I want to jump in and say why I didn't use empower is that it means, in business terms, it's very vague, right? When I say up-leveling, why I'm saying that is that you are intentionally changing the job level of that person. You may have to pay that person more. You may have to assign a different set of responsibilities. It's, it's probably HR language too, right? Because we need to send that message that training alone is not enough. You have to change the roles and responsibilities and the level of what you're expecting from that person, while making sure that the AI that you're adopting supports through that assistant augment. Sorry, yeah.
No, I definitely agree. But I do think that there's a moment in time where there will be some elimination of jobs. And I go back to when we first had access to the internet. My CEO actually goes back to the steam engine, so I'm not going to go back that. When he uses examples, he talks about the steam engine. I'll talk about the internet. And I think a lot of us remember when the internet was first available to everyone, and you could not actually apply for a job without being clear that you had some experience or you understood how to use it, because certain jobs just did not exist anymore when you can get the information on the internet, right? So I do think there's a moment in time where some very basic tasks, if there are people doing very basic tasks right now that you can actually get the response using Gen AI, those jobs will actually change. Maybe they will be changed and up-leveled, as you mentioned, and some of them will just be eliminated. And I think there's a responsibility of corporations and many of us here to figure out how do we help those people who are going to be affected by this change. It's going to be a moment in time, right, until everybody then is reskilled or upskilled, and they're going to be able to get those jobs where they have those AI skills, whether it's even as basic as prompt engineering or, all the way to maybe, understanding machine learning. But a lot of times it's just very early stage, prompt engineering, how to increase their productivity, understanding what ethical AI and Gen AI is, even the basics of it. There's a moment in time where we have to make sure we're skilling people and making them ready for those new jobs. We just released a study, actually, just last week, where 51% of CEOs are saying that they are increasing the number of jobs around AI. So again, there will be some elimination of jobs. I think we all have to be aware of that, especially basic tasks, entry-level jobs, which is also important to make sure we are working with university students and providing some training for them as well. So when they graduate, some of those early jobs they may have gotten, those may not exist. But there are other jobs that are growing and increasing and new jobs in this field. So again, the opportunity will be there, but the focus on skilling, reskilling, upskilling is something that we are working with nonprofits around globally. We made a commitment to skill 2 million people in AI over the next couple of years. We're diligently working with nonprofits on how we bring some of our AI learning pathways through Skills Build, how we work with them to bring it to the communities in need, and making sure that we're not leaving people behind. But I do think that there will be a shift, and we need to be ready for that, and we need to invest in education around AI, not just for ourselves. We also made sure we trained our employees as well, but also for our nonprofit partners and the communities that they serve.
Yeah, the discussion that you're hearing up here is exactly the discussion that we see on a pretty regular basis, thinking about the fact that if these technologies turn out to be as powerful as people anticipate they will be, and I think that we have reason to believe that's the case, that they're going to be a double-edged sword. And some folks are going to be, massively benefited, and some organizations will be. And others we're going to need to figure out how to carefully and responsibly navigate what potentially some of those downsides look like, which is a subject of some work that we've done recently to release guidelines on AI and shared prosperity for organizations considering exactly these challenges. We are starting to run short on time, so I'm going to kick off a lightning round here. And so returning to the title of the panel, the linkages between responsible AI and corporate responsibility, would love to hear each of your thoughts, let's call it 30 seconds each, on one big trend that you see coming on the intersection between CSR and responsible AI, and how you're thinking about navigating it. Tough challenge for 30 seconds, but I'm sure you all have it. You'll get it.
I'll say the biggest trend I think responsible AI will have the biggest impact for corporate responsibility is in the ability to take the vast amounts of information we all have at our fingertips and be able to bring it together and make it work for the social impact causes. It could be anything from telling your stories. It could be anything from to understand the problems and the magnitude of the problems facing the organizations you're partnering with, to actually finding those solutions. As many as 6 or 7 years ago, McKinsey did a study and they found 160 use cases that covered all 17 UN SDGs. And all of them could be solved by some form of AI, generative AI, or some type of technology like that. And the thing that is missing is the expertise and that last mile implementation, right? So we can close those gaps by empowering, upskilling, and leveling up our organizations to support our nonprofit partners in those endeavors.
Right. Balaji.
I have a quick call to action, which is, I have this dream that we can build a LLM for social impact, and which is free of the hallucinations of the larger OpenAI systems. So if you want to join hands, come find me, because I think the greatest opportunity is in the intersections, right? Between, for example, climate adaptation, the impact of that on health, and the opportunity for inclusive growth and economic empowerment. So I think we have great, wonderful people and organizations that have done tremendous amount of work in this space. This is a moment where we can bring that together, find the the threads, the common threads that are there, and use this sort of approach to create prosperity for all. So hopeful.
Let's work together on that. So I think going back to education, many of us have been in this space for a long time, and I think even if you saw some of those data points from earlier where people are focusing their priorities and their funding in K-12, in economic development, and also in university space. And if you think about the stats, right, World Economic Forum had shared a statistic that 60% of our communities, our population already needed reskilling, right, to be successful in the workforce. And now you have on top of that the acceleration of AI. So my biggest priority is how do we make sure we're not leaving those populations behind, already closing the gap, which hopefully will not get exacerbated because of AI, but how do we make sure we're not leaving those communities behind, making sure we're reskilling and upskilling them, and making sure they have an opportunity at a real job, right, that increases economic and social mobility in the future. So that's a priority for us.
Thanks so much. And I think we all got very close to hitting those 30 seconds, so thanks for that. Please join me in thanking our fantastic panelists.